All right, everyone. Welcome back to the land of Chem. I am your host and the author. My name is Jeffrey Drum. Thank you all so much for joining me again. All right, everyone, welcome back. This is Sunday Site Visit number 5. And in today's video, I will be exploring the Bent Pyramid of Dashur with a private visit down to the Valley Temple. And the primary objective for today's expedition was some on-site data collection for a project I am working on in conjunction with the Ascension project. My secondary mission was to investigate some details for my secondary hypothesis regarding the function of the Bent Pyramid, which I have not presented yet here on the channel. If this is the type of content you're interested in, please subscribe to the Land of Chem here on YouTube and click that little notification button because you do not want to miss the content that I have coming up very soon. If you want to help support the channel, you know what to do. thelandofchem.com, pick up some merch, grab a copy of the book. Either way, all of the orders mean the world to me. Thank you so much for the support. If you want to follow me on Instagram, my handle is @thelandofchem. Ladies and gentlemen, I think that is it for today's intro. So without further ado, let's get right to it. All right, everyone, here we go with tonight's episode. So today, I will be exploring the Bent Pyramid of Dashur, which is located here, just to the south of the Red Pyramid, and also presenting some footage of the Valley Temple, which is located here. And this is the configuration of the site, with the external reservoir here, the Valley Temple over here, and the satellite hydraulic press mechanism located here. And I will also be revealing some new footage from inside of this hydraulic press very soon. But for now, just note that the satellite pyramid is enclosed within the same external reservoir that surrounds the main structure, as this water source is critical in its operation. And this diagram and the subsequent one come from the EGPYT project website. And I highly recommend you check them out. So I will put links to their website and YouTube channels in the video description below. And here is a diagram of the Valley Temple as it may have stood during the time of operation. But as you will see in the video, not much of the structure remains today. But I did some additional digging and discovered this. Another diagram from Cambridge University. And at first glance, it may not seem to be of any significance. However, I noticed over here, they indicate the presence of silos. And this may catch your attention as it did mine, as silos usually indicate storage. Okay, storage for what? And I have proposed that these temples could have been processing facilities for either raw materials or the final product. And here at the Valley Temple of the Bent Pyramid, the latter may have been the case, where the solid ammonium bicarbonate or urea was stored here in the temple before being loaded onto ships for distribution. As you can see, this component here leading out to the harbor. And yes, as I have discussed before, the water from the Nile River used to come right up to the threshold of these temples. And all of them, from Saqqara to Dashur to Giza, featured a harbor area for the docking of ships. So let's start off with the footage from the Valley Temple, and I hope you enjoy.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back with another Land of Chem exclusive down here at the Valley Temple of the Bent Pyramid. And you can see Red Pyramid there to the north. And I'm just going to take a very quick walk around here to see what kind of geology. There in the distance is the Black Pyramid. And this is my first time down in this area. And I'm just taking a quick walk around to see what we can see down here. Of course, this is all restoration work, modern restoration work here. It just rained over the last couple of days, so there's water. You can see the mud brick surrounding the structure. Most likely came at a later period during remodeling and repurposing of the area. And there, up at the top, you can see the Bent Pyramid. What an absolutely spectacular view. And I'm seeing if I can find, again, mostly I'm looking for the geology out here. and just taking a quick walk around the exterior of the structure. I noticed some big chunks of iron oxide as I was coming in here, and I will get a quick video of those as well. I've never been down here, so I have no idea what to look for. So I'm going to take a quick walk around the perimeter, and then we'll head inside the structure. Piece iron oxide, and most likely some other minerals. There's another large piece right here, so I knew it had to be around here somewhere, but it looks like it's just all buried in sand. And I've been looking around the bent pyramid to see if there's the same. Oh, I already see something that caught my eye inside the structure. So again, just the perimeter here. Head into the core of the structure. Really hope you guys are enjoying the new footage, or the improved quality of the footage on the new GoPro, because it's a hell of a lot of fun to film with this thing. So now here we go into the core of the Valley Temple. And honestly, what I'm looking for is some calcite crystal. Here we are in the central area of the temple. And this would have been original walls. So they've covered these up. I bet these were holes. There's another one there. A big pit. This area here, they may have had a fire out here at some point that scorched this area, but this kind of caught my attention. Now, so these may have held columns, or they may be pits. It's difficult to say without a thorough excavation, but they definitely capped all these things over. Look, this is modern concrete and restoration that filled this in. And again, were these bases for the columns? It's very hard to say. Piece of black basalt. So there had to be some other geology around here. That may not be the basalt. Appears to all be limestone. I haven't seen any calcite embedded in the floor out here. Of course, those pieces may have been removed, or there may not have been any out here originally. And just a beautiful panorama out here. Yeah, so I don't see any evidence of calcite crystal out here. A lot of this is restored. Black Pyramid there in the distance. Another exclusive on-site investigation. Again, these temples had a different function than the pyramids themselves, and I'll be getting to that later. And here's the remains of one piece of a column. And let's see if this is seated in a hole. Yep. So this looks to be seated in a hole, similar to what we saw on the interior of the structure, which would explain those. So those are housings for the columns themselves. All right, guys, stay tuned. There's a whole lot more to come, exclusively here on the land of Kem. And I'm gonna get a great view once, there we go. Beautiful.
Next up, a journey inside the bent pyramid itself, where I am mainly focusing on the lower chamber separation system here, the chimney, which is located here, and the connecting passage leading toward the primary reaction chamber, which is located here. And this is an exceptional diagram showing the internal configuration of the lower separation chamber system. And for those of you that haven't heard my full explanation on the function of the bent pyramid, I will also put a link in the video description below. And inside of this quote unquote chimney system here, you can see these tiered components that feature some quote unquote closing blocks, as I mentioned in the video. And a more detailed explanation of the function of this area will be coming up soon, so please subscribe and stay tuned. And without further ado, let's take a journey inside of the bent pyramid of Dashur so you can see this for yourself.
There we go. All right, everyone, welcome back. And yes, it's a windy day out here in Dashur, but it is absolutely beautiful, and I wouldn't have it any other way. So I'm trying to speak a little bit closer to the microphone so that you can hear me a little bit better. But as you can see behind me, I'm out here today at the bent pyramid of Dashur. And the primary objective for today's research is to do some on-site data collection for the ACITA project. And I'm doing this because it is a great way for me to say thank you for everything that the ACITA project has contributed to my research. And I want to give a shout out to the team at the ACITA project. I won't put your names on blast publicly, but you know who you are. And from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for supporting my research and for providing me with all the material that you have given me thus far. And I will do my best to collect some good data today. And I really enjoy working with you guys, and I look forward to seeing what we can do in the future. So that being said, of course, I'm also here to do some on-site investigations of my own. A few things that I'll be looking for specifically. I won't spoil the surprise, as we will be heading up the stairs and going inside. Everyone, I just want to say thank you all so much for the support for all the recent videos, especially the outpouring of positivity with the recent Living in Egypt video. I wasn't sure how that was going to go over, but I really appreciate your support of the new content. I mainly made that video so some folks from back home could see that I was alive and safe in a good neighborhood, but also so that you all could see what it's like living here in Egypt. So, ladies and gentlemen, I think that is it for the intro of, I'm not sure which site visit this will be, but obviously another Sunday site visit, on-site investigation exclusively from the land of Kem. Yalavina. All right, everyone. Just got down here into the bottom of the northern pump shaft of the bent pyramid. I'm trying not to blast this light in your face, but I just got myself situated with all my gear. And I'm gonna turn the camera around so you can see up the northern pump shaft. And I've become quite a professional at getting down inside these structures. And for any of you that have not been here, I always recommend going down backwards. It's by far the easiest way to go. But remember, if you ever come down inside these things, what comes down must also go up. And coming down is a lot easier than going back up. So with that being said, I am down here in the lowest chamber of the structure. And I am the first person out in Dashur today. We got here very early before the site officially opened. And as soon as the gates were open, I came down inside here because I have a lot of work to do today. And I wanted to get some good documentation and footage of this lower chamber so that you can see the extreme state of erosion down here. And my specific objective for coming in this particular chamber today, obviously it's where you start the journey as we ascend to the primary reaction chamber. And you can see there a layer of the salt, or the composition of this material is yet to be determined. But I want to get good documentation of this today because we're going to be discussing this material later, and you can see it's a small layer there, maybe only a millimeter or two thick. And this is the new staircase that they erected inside of the chamber. So when the Esoteric project came in here back in 2010, and I will put a link to their website and specifically their expedition to Dashur. They came in here before the structure was officially opened or reopened to the public. And they came in 2010. The structure was officially reopened to the public in 2020, which was my first expedition inside the structure. So the reason I came down here, I'm gonna see if I can squeeze back there, because there is a huge cavity back here. And they took all the rocks. Yep, there it is. And they have packed. You can see back there. Bear with me. I wasn't sure if I was going to fit in there. Look at all that iron oxide up there. And they have packed. See this area here? And I'm not going to climb up any further because there's a lot of unstable rocks. But they have packed this entire area over here. There's a hole that goes out of this chamber in this direction. And I wanted to get footage of this so that you can see that there is absolutely the possibility of there being an extraction shaft or extraction shaft leading in this direction. They've packed it full of wood, and they've done that intentionally so people can't go back here. But also notice the extreme erosion, how rounded out that wall is there. There also looks like there's a hole going back in that direction. So again, this is in the lowest portion of the structure, what I call the lower separation chamber. And we'll be discussing this area in much further depth coming up soon. So I'm going to cut for a moment now. Again, there's a bunch of iron oxide there, and it's difficult to tell whether that's core masonry of the structure. It looks like bedrock that has iron oxide in it, no surprise. We've seen that in all the structures, that most likely these pyramids are built on bedrock that is permeated with these iron oxide deposits in the core of the structure. So bear with me. I'm gonna squeeze back. There's also something else that I'm looking for in this pile of rocks. and I'm not going to spoil it quite yet, but I'm out here for a very specific reason today. There's definitely a hole, either right there or in that direction, which would have been your extraction shaft to remove the product, the aqueous product, from this chamber. So now squeeze back through here. Again, when the Ascita project came out here, there's another shot of that material. When the Ascita project was in here, this was just a wooden ladder, a really sketchy looking wooden ladder that they used to ascend. And there was another very rickety staircase. Okay, so here's something interesting to note. You see this hole here. This was most likely excavated either during the construction or during a later period, the dynastic period. And you can see the chisel marks that came through here. So most likely a hole that came later. As I've showed in my videos of the Great Pyramid, holes that were intended to be in the structure are carved very precisely. They aren't carved, but they're not chiseled out like this. They're very precise. Like what we've seen in the Great Pyramid air shafts. Those holes were intended to be there. So they aren't rough cut like this. This came around later after the structure was already built. If it was intended to be an original part of the structure, it would have been integrated in the masonry block itself, and it would be very precise. So these came around later, dynastic period, for example. And you can see that there's a salt deposit in there. So that is an indication that the salt deposit formed after the hole was carved. Pretty interesting fact, because you have to have moisture inside of this structure for that salt deposit to extrude and form on the stone. So here we're looking up at the northern wall, and you can see that there's some bats in there. So when the Ascita project, go ahead. So when the Ascita project came in here in 2010, this whole structure was filled with bats. And when I came in here in 2020, they had just fumigated this structure and there were dead bats all over the place. But you can see there's a few up there. They're just chilling, not bothering anyone. But you can see the precise tiered upper vault, very similar to what we see in the Red Pyramid. But then look at the extreme state of erosion on this lower part of this chamber. Again, an indication of the function that I've proposed for the structure. And we'll see more of that erosion when we get to the primary chamber, because that entire chamber is eroded out. Awesome, and I'm really happy I can finally get this on 4K so you can really see. And a couple other things that we will be investigating today. There are salt deposits on the wall of this upper separation chamber, and there's also mortar stuck to the outside of these chamber walls. As you can see here, you can see here. And this is the same material that we saw at the Pyramid of Winis that I was discussing, that you could call this a geopolymer because it's made from ground up stone. And they turned it into a concrete or mortar that is literally hard as stone. But this is quarried stone, real limestone. So my question is, what was applied to these chamber walls that had to be mortared into place? One of the reasons that I'm in here today. Because they wouldn't put this mortar on the exterior of these fine blocks unless something was mortared into place here, because it's used as an adhesive. So I have an idea that there was most likely an external layer down in here that was glued onto the mortar. And they've done an exceptional job of removing whatever that material is. And so my next objective is to try and climb in here so I can get some footage of this quote unquote chimney chamber. And this is the primary focus of the research of the EGPYT project. So as I've presented before in a previous episode, they believe that this chimney chamber is designed as a furnace to generate carbon monoxide that was used as a booby trap for the pharaonic burial. And yes, their work does go along with the pharaonic burial hypothesis. Obviously mine is a little bit different in regard to the production of industrial scale chemicals. But nonetheless, we are both proposing that there were elevated levels of carbon monoxide and carbon dioxide inside of this structure, which they brought meters down in here to test that. And the carbon dioxide is directly related to my proposed theory on the function of the structure. And the last time I tried to climb up on this thing, the rock started falling, so I don't want to make a huge mess, so I'm gonna have to bring somebody in here at some point to give me a boost up there. And I actually got some guy in here that might be willing to help me. Hang on just one sec, folks. I'll be right back.
Have fun.
Oh, thank you. I can jump back down.
No worries.
All right, everyone. Hell yeah. So I got a boost into the chimney chamber. And this is my first time inside of here. So I'm gonna take it real slow. And I can already hear the bats. And you can see that there's a thick salt layer here that's growing between these stones. You see that? That's all salt. And this is internal in the structure. You can see it there on the ceiling too. It's flaking off right there. Oh man, there's a bunch of salt. Again, interior, you can see there's a piece of masonry here, and the salt is under that layer. Hello, Bets. Oh yeah. I'm trying to pan slowly and not disturb these critters, because the last thing I want is a bunch of bats flying down on my head. And we are now on the interior of the chimney chamber. Oh, this is definitely something you will not see anywhere else other than the EGPYT project's original video from inside of this chamber, 2010. And man, those extrusions there are thick. And it definitely looks like it's been chipped off. I guarantee you that is loaded with iron oxide. And I'm gonna try to get some footage here of this connecting part. So this part here leads back out to the other side. And I'll show you where that terminates. And there's another system way up there. And there's a block mechanism that used to move. And I'll try to show this on a diagram. But there's another chamber up there before the tiers at the top. You see those 2 tiers at the top that have all that material on it? Right underneath that, there's another hole, and there's another chamber section in there. And I'll throw in a diagram so you can see exactly what that is. And I'm gonna cut for 1 second so I can get some pictures inside here. Hell yeah. All right. Fuck yeah, dude. Feeling like a real researcher today. And this is why I came to Egypt, man. So I can put in the work. So I was able to get up there into the chimney chamber, as you just saw. And this is the termination of that area that connects through into the chimney chamber. And I have my own ideas as to what this area was for. We'll be getting to in just a little bit. You can also see all of the salty material. Okay, another thought. The blocks were laid first. Then a significant amount of time has to pass for this salt layer to form. There has to be moisture inside of the chamber for this salt to come out of the stone. But look, the mortar is on top of the salt layer. So this came around much later than the block itself. And the mortar is on top of the salt layer. If the mortar came around at the same time, I think it would also have a salt coating on it. Okay, and it does. This mortar piece here is all covered with salt. Okay. Again, I'm cross-checking my own ideas here, because I'm proposing that there is something that was stuck to this wall using the mortar. And if the mortar came around much later and it had no salt on it, that would have nullified that hypothesis. However, this mortar does have salt on it. So it appears that it was to function as I am suggesting. The walls were constructed, the mortar was applied, and something was stuck onto the exterior layer of these chambers. So again, we were just able to get inside that chimney chamber, and the gentleman I was just talking to that gave me a boost pointed out that the configuration of this entire component is quite similar, in location at least, to the configuration of this lower separation chamber. And they're definitely at the same place within this chamber. So a pretty unusual design feature. Again, we're looking at the top of the upper vault here, and you can see the remaining tiers. And there's definitely a lot of iron oxide inside of this structure too, in the core masonry, and we're going to see that when we go and look at the connecting shaft. So now looking up into the upper vault of the primary separation chamber. So the uppermost chamber is your primary reaction chamber. Everything flows through that connecting shaft here into your lower separation chamber system. And it's a dual chamber system. This lower system is connected directly into this system. So this being your upper separation chamber, and this is your lower separation chamber. So something else I noticed that was pretty unusual is this section here. And this side is completely covered with that salt glaze, this area here. was all salt. And a very thick layer. And you can see some mortar here that also has that salty material on it. But this area over here, look at all these little peck marks. It looks like so I just figured out what happened. My mind's in a good place today. So something happened here in the construction process, or in the operation of the structure. Hell yeah. And they had to come in here and fix it. So this is part of the original construction. It was operating, the salt was forming, and it cracked. This whole piece probably cracked and fell out. As you can see, this block starting here, all over here. This is restoration. So they came back in here and they fixed it with new blocks that haven't had the salt layer form. I'm gonna pan back a little bit. So again, this is a crack. So this side is older than this side. And it was repaired, possibly, okay, see salt here? So this is old, original. This is all old, original. And this part is where they came in and fixed it. So this entire section looks like it fell off. The whole wall would have originally been covered with salt. And they came back in here, and you can see that crude chiseling in that little hole right there. And they came back and fixed it, because this entire thing would have fallen off. Because this is definitely, and I've been in here a bunch of times and I've never put that together. I always wondered. I originally thought that the salt had maybe formed, and maybe these chisel marks had chiseled off the layer of salt, but there's not enough. It would be shallower here if they had chiseled off the layer, but it's very flat. So this is a restoration piece. Again, this piece had broken off. I came back in here, made a perfect patch, mortared it back in place. This is all newer. Hell yeah. Mystery solved. So what I'm suggesting here is that they came in and restored this thing even when it was operatory. And there's definitely some staining in there. So this part here has all been repaired by the Ministry of Antiquities. There's modern concrete. And there's little metal bars, there's a little metal piece right there, a metal piece right there sticking in there, where they've come in and reinforced the structure. These wooden beams are all modern, where they've come in and just reinforced these chamber walls to prevent them from collapsing any further. So of course there was let me call it maintenance work. Maintenance and repair inside of these structures while they were operational. Okay, like this piece right here. This piece right here, it's a block of modern concrete that was added by the Ministry of Antiquities to fill in that hole to make sure that nothing fell. And they've done this at all the structures. It's all over the Giza Plateau. It's on the outside of the Great Pyramid. They've put in fake blocks to patch things up. There's a patch right there where they just came in. They put some modern concrete over there to firm everything up. So it's extremely difficult, but also very important to analyze the different layers. What was original? What was restoration during the operation? What was repurposing during the dynastic period? And then what was done by the Ministry of Antiquities? So we're looking at 4 different things, not to mention that there have been other civilizations that have come in here. Okay, so this is by far my best expedition into the Bent Pyramid. And I'm also just noticing this pretty large drip stain here. Kind of reminiscent to what we see in the Red Pyramid. But again, this whole block here is missing. This whole area is missing. And it's all patched up with modern concrete. This hole right here is patched with modern concrete. This here. There's modern concrete all in this area. So what did they remove from here that was causing this? There was something here. This is all modern patch, modern patch, modern patch. Came in and smoothed it out. And this hole is filled with it also. And we see the drip coming down from here. So what was here that was so indicative of what was going on in this structure that they felt they had to remove it and patch it up with modern concrete to hide the origination point of this staining. It's getting even more interesting. Every time I step inside these things, there's something else. All right, so now I've done here what I've came to do in the lower chamber. Okay, so here is what I was talking about. So for example, you can see the salt has started to flake off here. That's why there's no salt over here, because it's all just flaked off of this part. This is not the same as what we were looking at over there, because there's no delineation of a crack or a repair here. This is just the salt has flaked off, just like that. And it's flaked off of this entire area. All right, now, time to ascend the staircase. Yalla vina. And I'm just going to get some footage here of this termination point that leads into the chimney chamber. And we're about halfway up the staircase. Leading toward the primary reaction chamber. So this is that termination that goes into the chimney here. I'm going to be coming back to these. There's some holes here. Another hole here. And a lot of this stuff appears that it came around later, but I need to take a detailed look at that. So this one here definitely is a later addition. Okay, so this is the northern wall of the upper separation chamber. And we're making our way toward the connecting passage leading into the primary reaction chamber. Hey, thank you so much for your help.
No worries.
And follow along. You'll see the video soon.
I will check.
This exact video.
Okay, thank you.
Alright, so again, this is definitely a hole that came around later. You can see the chisel marks. It is not integrated into the masonry blocks. This hole came later. This one. I'm still to be determined on these. There are some indications that they could be original. And you see another one here. And there's a bunch of just chisel marks in there, where that hole has been chiseled out of the existing masonry at a later point. These ones, I don't see any chisel marks in there. And they are configured at the joints. As we go back down, I'll show it again. They're configured at the joints of the blocks. So when they were carving this limestone masonry, they made these little angles that were intended to be in the structure. They are part of the original construction because they're part of the block itself. It's not chiseled into the block later. It was part of the original masonry design. And that's what you see here, which may have been vestiges from the construction process. They had to build these things, and there would have been certain techniques that were necessary to erect these structures, and these holes are probably a part of that. Again, this is a chiseled out. You can see all the chisel marks in there. That's a hole that came around much later. Another hole that came around later. And there is definitely a coating of material that is, it's really brown up here. You can see on the edge. Something's, again, very comparable to what we see in the red pyramid, but it seems like a much flatter layer. And as you can see now, some people have started to make their way in here. So, let me cut. I'll be right back. here is where the core limestone masonry stops. This is bedrock. And on this side, here is where the core masonry stops. Bedrock. You can see all the iron oxide in the bedrock. This is not limestone masonry. This is all bedrock in this section of the connecting shaft. Bye, friends. You can see the chisel marks from where this area was chiseled out of the bedrock.
Ay, se me olvidó la linterna. No está bien.
Hay mucha distancia. No sabemos de momento.
Todo bien, pasan, amigos.
Is that the end?
Pasan.
Oh, great, thank you.
No es mi primera vez.
Oh, okay.
Todo bien.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much, sir.
Claro que sí.
Hello.
Disfruten.
Thank you, gracias.
Ten cuidado la cabeza, muy despacio.
Gracias.
Quieto. La herradura tropieza.
Mírate aquí, la cabeza.
Sí, ya, ya.
Ok.
No podéis, vosotros. Reviento, que no, revienta. Porque mira, coge la verdad. Vale, te revienta las patas, te revienta.
And I always wondered, why leave this piece here? Was it to try to maintain the structural integrity of this connecting shaft? Leaving a piece of bedrock here, because this is all bedrock, again, bedrock. And they left this piece here, most likely to try to maintain the integrity of this area. Still bedrock, bedrock, bedrock. Big crack right there. Big little hole right there. This is still bedrock. Bedrock, bedrock. And then back to core masonry here. This piece, this here is bedrock. This is core masonry. This piece is core masonry. This top piece, that's bedrock. Or this may be blocks of the core of the structure, not bedrock. These are actually limestone blocks. Limestone. Just this piece right here is limestone. This here is all bedrock here. Bedrock, bedrock. This is also bedrock. I'll show you from this side. Alright. So into the primary chamber, core masonry here, and it stops right here. Goes back up this direction. Okay, so this is limestone masonry here, limestone masonry here, and it has the same configuration on both sides. It goes up here. This down here is bedrock. This is bedrock. This here is bedrock. And you can see the line here and here. This is all limestone here. Limestone masonry on the top piece. And then it fits into the bedrock piece down here. This is bedrock, part of the tunnel going down. And this is where the limestone masonry stops, this cap piece, and then it starts here. Bedrock. This is all bedrock at this section here. So there's a cap piece of limestone masonry. The bottom piece is bedrock in this section. Looking back there, you can see here the cap piece. Limestone masonry fitted on top, and there's this piece here. Limestone masonry that stops here. Bedrock underneath here. This is the western shaft.
All right, everyone, that is it for today's video. This was Sunday site visit number 5. I really hope you enjoyed today's video, and in the next episode in the series, I will be presenting an introduction to the inverse piezoelectric property and the production of ultrasound, a topic that I know you all have eagerly been waiting. So if you haven't already, please subscribe to the Land of Chem here on YouTube and click that little notification button, because you do not want to miss the content that I have coming up here on the channel. If you want to help support, just go to thelandofchem.com, grab some merch, pick up a copy of the book. All the orders mean the world to me. From the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for the support. If you want to follow me on Instagram, my handle is @thelandofchem. Ladies and gentlemen, I think that is it for today's video, so I will see you next time.
Yo, are you still watching this? Please subscribe to the Land of Chem here on YouTube and click that little notification button. New videos coming out every single week. And check out this other episode. Come on, do it. Do it now.